Discovered another technology, simple, free, on the internet. I think you can pay $60 and get the professional version of it, called Prezi. And so I highly recommend you all take a look at it. The schools are all using it. The little kids who like to be a little more creative than us old folks who like to do PowerPoint linearly are using these Prezi models. And if you'll all tab over to the Prezi model.
This is kind of ADD on steroids, isn't it?
ADD on steroids.
Attention deficit syndrome.
On steroids.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead through it.
I'm not going to go all the way through it because it's too much detail. The point I'm going to make, and I'm just going to show you the functionality of it. If you enlarge the key up here, you'll see the IDEF model I was talking about. That's the beauty of this technology. You can make a model that's 5 or 6 or 8 levels deep, which is the requirement of what we're talking about here. And with Prezi, you just drill down and you make the picture. So this is the basic model. It looks, for those of you that are in activity modeling, it looks a lot like IDEF. And it says, here's the activity, but I'm also calling it kind of the outcome. Inputs are learning objectives, specs, and all those other things that we've been talking about. I'm sorry, this is one of the controls on it. I'm using liberally the constraint or control. So in the control on this activity are the things like the learning objectives and the standards for the training and whatnot, or education. The input is the staff, who hopefully gets modified during this activity and has some career progress, and the resources that you're going to apply, which include at a minimum the courses and the types of instructors that are required to do that, are at the bottom. So if we back on out of that one and go look at the entire model, I'm just going to point at it, but you can see the equivalent on the PowerPoint, and that's down in the lower left-hand corner are knowledge workers. That's the staff of your organization. In the middle, stair-step fashion, I have the KM team, and you'll notice some way, my terminology is not the exact words, but it's the same basic function that we've talked about here for the last day and a half. And then finally you have the executives up here in the far right-hand corner. I am implying a little bit of hierarchy there, but that's the nature of organizations. Let's take a look just very quickly, though. I'm going to try to do this now in 1 or 2 more minutes. I'll try to beat Mike on this. Now in the lower left-hand corner, I have staff that become, I hope, knowledge workers in the knowledge age. They need to be aware. So there's an entire awareness campaign. If you can move it over just a little bit. There's an entire awareness campaign which is so often overlooked in KM. I teach probably about 1,000 people a year, and most of them are totally unaware of awareness, which is a critically important thing in the change management. So there needs to be an awareness. When you're trying to mature in a KM initiative, initially almost immediately, you need to start your awareness campaign. So the awareness campaign hopefully creates, from just plain staff, an awareness that they are knowledge workers and we are in the knowledge age. Now out of that box, I believe there are 2 types of knowledge workers. Everybody's a knowledge worker. Executives, we've talked about that, and I think we've all come to agreement on that. We're not going to have class differentiations here, but there are some people that I call power knowledge workers. These require really super skills. Those are the ones that usually have at least master's degrees. Maybe they went on for a PhD, but certainly some highly specialized training, highly specialized skill sets. And I call them power knowledge workers. And for those people, we have a program called Personal KM. That's not to say that anybody in the organization can't take Personal KM, but a course like this would focus on some of the most sophisticated of tools and technologies and other aspects that a person, if they're really going to be powerful and on a fast career track and be very productive in their organization, need to be aware of. All right, so those are, and we actually have a certification program that we haven't yet initiated, but that's our intent, because people like to say, I've got a diploma or I've got a certificate. So there needs to be some reward for that besides the reward of being a much better producer. Okay, over on the right, moving it up, stair-stepping up a little bit further. No, I'm sorry, take it up to the big box. Okay, we pull back out, and this whole box here is the KM team. Now every one of these things could be an object. The box that says KM team is right now not an object, but that would be an object itself. And you see down the lower left-hand corner, if you can just move it up a little bit, I have the KM team members. This is your generalists that are on the team. They have to have a basic amount of understanding of KM because they're going to be participating in who knows what kind of a thing. And we call it a certified knowledge practitioner. That's the entry level for us. That is what we've been calling here more generalist, kind of a knowledge manager, but on a team, not somebody who's just a knowledge worker. Somebody's on the KM team. When we've been using the word specialist, we have a program called Certified Knowledge Specialist. That's somebody who gets an advanced education on a very specific aspect of KM. Remember yesterday I mentioned that term BULLS. Bulls, to me, represents a very specific application. And any organization may ultimately do 5 or 6 or 8 of these, maybe 15 total bulls. But it's emerging. I don't know how much the final number is going to be. Right now it's about 15 of them. What are some of those bulls? Doing communities of practice, doing a lessons learned management process, doing a best practices management process, totally rethinking learning in your organization, doing process management in the knowledge age, not the way we used to do process management, but process management in the knowledge age. And my favorite, innovation, the creation of new ideas. Every one of these is a separable KM bull. If you try to do all of them at the same time, and I've had a few clients that attempted to do that, and that's basically impossible. You can't be good at all these things at once. You have to take them pretty much sequentially, not simultaneously. So a knowledge specialist would be somebody who gets special education in that particular, very critical strategic initiative that you're going to perform within the overall KM umbrella. And then up here at the top is the Certified Knowledge Manager, and that's the person who has more of the MBA of KM. They lead the entire program, and you notice I did call it a program instead of just a project. A knowledge specialist works on a project, a specific specialty. Knowledge manager type, or leader, we've been using that term, leader, is more of an MBA type, expertise across the entire spectrum of things, knows how to move the whole organization towards where it wants to go, can justify to top management expenditures on some of these often costly specializations, and runs the team, however big or small that team might be. Some of these certified knowledge specialists, after performing a practicum and proving that they are worth it, like Carla and Steve have done, get the Master CKM. I think Master CKM are people that can become executives without any question in my mind whatsoever. So, I've given you 2 things here, well 3. One was how the PhD program at George Washington really got started. And secondly, that I think we need to have a pretty flexible model that is able to be looked at and changed over time, has enough flexibility that every one of these objects can, and not only flexibility, but depth, and that's what we're talking about here. We really need the depth, and no two-dimensional model is going to do that for us. And ultimately, I'd like to see this in a huge graphic that in your university you can have it on the wall. In conferences, we'd like to have it up on the wall in the conferences because everybody would be gravitating towards that booth to see that big graphic. But ultimately, having a simple tool that costs nothing that we can easily manipulate. I didn't ask Brand ahead of time how long it took to do this, but he rendered my PowerPoint into this, and I know you went out and looked for some special pictures and whatnot, but what was the time to set this thing up?
Probably 3 or 4 hours.
3 or 4 hours, and all he did was the first representation. So it might be another 3 or 4 hours to start putting the content to it.
But once you do these graphics, I mean, it'd be a lot quicker the next time because all these were things I had to create from scratch, but then you could reuse them. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, the real content obviously is the content, the stuff that we're talking about here. Getting it into a model that's very dynamic and able to be drilled down 3 or 4 or 5 levels deep is a minimal amount of work. And I think we paid $60 so you can have it on your desktop. And I think there's an even more expensive version for $120 or something.
The point is you can drill down to any, see this little nugget up here, drill down to that, and then you could go further if you need a couple layers deep.
That's the beauty of it. And everybody can have this on their desktop. And it's available on the web. In other words, it could be on our site, our blog, or wiki. But it also could just be out there on the web for other people. And maybe we'd want to put it in a couple of different places to get more visibility. All right, I think I might have competed with Mike on that in terms of time taken. But that's the model we were talking about.
Let's see if we can get some. So let's hear from the other panelists what they think about this model.
Okay. Since this is the first time I've seen it, Doug, I'm not going to jump too quickly and say, yay, 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 but it looks good from a distance. But let me tell you some concerns I have, not about the model, but about the actual learning, because there's a big difference. My personal opinion from some experience, quite a bit in fact, I don't believe you can teach anybody anything. What you can do is create an environment in which they desire to learn, and then you can help them learn. Because learning is not easy, it's personal, it's very dependent upon a lot of characteristics that we normally don't think of, such as the physical environment, the level of stress, protecting our own image to other people, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of work has been done recently in neuroscience that will aid learning considerably, and I think that needs to be looked into quite carefully. They have identified 13 different areas of our body and characteristics which can significantly impact, to some degree, various degrees, of course, the quality and the amount of learning using Kolb's experiential learning model. So we need to keep that in mind. We've talked quite a bit during the last 2 days about the importance of doing, which I support 100%. It's insufficient without the knowledge, but you must have both in practice. And if you are looking to learn knowledge as distinct from information, and I separate them very carefully and very distinctly, if you will. Both are important, don't misunderstand me. But information is the who, what, when, and where. Knowledge is the why and how, the insight, the intuition, the creativity, if you will, the ability to make good judgments and understand the meaning of something, etc., etc. That's the deep knowledge. Now, what do they need to know depends upon the situation, where they are, what their experience is, and so forth. But from a learning perspective, it's important that they recognize, and whoever is teaching, if there is an instructor or something, or if it's self-learning, which goes on after the teaching, if you will. So that the idea is to recognize what you need to know and how to achieve it most efficiently. Most people who have experience in the real world, after getting a degree, a doctorate or a master's, they learn pretty fast, if they're successful, how to learn and how to adapt. That's why they are successful, if they're aware. But they still need help from as many perspectives as they can, and there are things there that we can help them with as well. Oh, by the way, before I forget, how many of you know my wife, Alex? Okay, she said to be sure and tell everybody she apologized for not being here. She is in Portugal the last 2 days giving several speeches, one of which is to be president of Portugal and 7 sheiks, she said. So.